And that is literally the worst advice that you could possibly take if your objective is that you want to become a singer that has the voice that you want. Hey guys and gals, welcome back for another video. I'm Gregory West, and if you don't know yet, this is the #1 channel on YouTube for learning how to sing. Now, you might not believe me yet, but try out the ideas in this video and the ideas in my other videos, and I guarantee you're going to make some progress with your singing. Last video was all about tone and how to improve and develop it by mimicking. In this video, I want to talk about another aspect of improving your tone, which is just as crucial. It's about learning what sounds good for your voice. If you've ever heard a singer or a vocal coach, and maybe this is you, they've been singing for a long time, many years, and they still don't sound that good at singing, then they haven't learned this. And I'm not shading anyone in particular. I think that you guys watching this know when a singer or a vocal coach doesn't sound that good, so I don't need to, throw up a clip here and put them on blast. So these people practice singing for years and they still don't sound good. Why? I mean, they might have a big range. They might, be able to sing high, be able to belt, be able to use mixed voice. They might have a lot of control over different sounds and tones in their voice. They might be on pitch and on rhythm. So why don't they sound good? Well, I'm going to talk about why and what they should do to get better. And this is going to help you to avoid ending up like them. This is going to let you improve your tone. To start off with, we need to recognize what our priorities are when it comes to learning how to sing. We have two main objectives that take precedence before everything else. And if you don't have these two things set in your mind as the most important and fundamental, then you're not going to become as good of a singer. And these are ordered based off of importance. So number one is more important than number two. Number one, you need to sound good while singing. Number two, singing should feel physically acceptable to you. It is so important that the sounds you make sound good. And this sounds painfully obvious, I know, but why are there people that have been practicing for years and they think that they sound good when they really don't? How does that happen? And how do you prevent that from happening to you? You have to keep your eye on the prize, which is sounding good. You need to burn into your brain that is the most important thing and never replace that with something else. What happens is over time, people stop focusing on sounding good to other people and they start focusing on their voice feeling good to them. This is very common with vocal coaches in particular. They will say things like, oh, I'm using correct vocal technique and I have a free correct resonance in my high range, and that's what healthy technique is supposed to sound like, so therefore it sounds good. This is whack. The priority has shifted away from sounding good to feeling good and fulfilling this stupid fantasy idea of correct vocal technique. Let me break something to you. If you don't sound good when you sing, it doesn't matter how your voice feels to you. Nobody will want to hear you. And you got to ask yourself, what's the point? You're just singing for yourself, for your own enjoyment of the physical sensations in your body, regardless of how everyone on the outside of you perceives them? That's self-gratifying singing masturbation. It's not going to lead to you becoming a great singer. All right, we got to pause. You already know why. All right, now the reason that sounding good is priority numero uno is that is the point of singing. And replacing that with correct technique or feeling good can lead to your singing feeling great, but sounding like absolute dog shit. All right, now priority number two is that your voice feels physically acceptable to you. And there's a good reason why I worded it that way. Your voice doesn't need to feel the way you want it to necessarily. Because you might have an idea about how your voice should feel when you sing a very loud, high, powerful, chesty note. And you might really want that feeling, but that feeling might not be the reality of the situation. In other words, you don't know exactly what something that you can't do yet is supposed to feel like. You don't have any experience with it. So don't go in creating desires about what you want your voice to feel like when doing something that you've never done before. Just keep the bare minimum that sensation, whatever that sound is that you're going for, that you're trying to work towards, whatever that tone is that you want to be able to create eventually, just keep the bare minimum that it should be acceptable to you. It might not be what you thought it was going to be. It might not, feel the way you anticipated, but as long as it's acceptable to you, that sensation, then you're good. Now, what is physically acceptable is going to differ from person to person. I think the majority of people aren't okay, being in pain while they sing. So any sounds that you make that are painful would mean that it's not acceptable to you. But if you're okay with some pain and, maybe you have some kind of philosophical perspective on art and expression that supports that acceptance, who am I to tell you that that's wrong, that that's bad, or that it's bad vocal technique? That sounds a little strange, but what vocal technique really is our attempt at the fulfillment of two main singing priorities. Number one, sounding good while singing. Number two, producing our singing in a physically acceptable way. If you're sounding great, but your voice hurts or it leaves you hoarse and that's not what you want, then obviously your vocal technique is not very good. But if your voice feels great and it sounds like shit, then obviously your vocal technique is not very good. We need to have both. But if you're happy with the sound you have, like it sounds good to you, it's the way you want it, and it also hurts a little bit, but you're okay with that, like maybe you like it, maybe you're a little vocally masochistic. Well, that's okay. You do you. You have good vocal technique because you're successfully fulfilling your two main singing priorities. Now, most of us probably want our voice to feel good while we sing. I do. And so that's a part of what physically acceptable means to me. But it's so important that that comes after sounding good and not before. Now, before we dive into, what actually sounds good for you, for your voice, we need to talk about what sounding good actually means. There's a degree of subjectivity here when it comes to this. Your version of sounding good is not objective. Not everyone shares your opinion. Some people think that what you think sounds good sounds bad, and you think that what some people think sounds good actually sounds bad. It's personal taste, and that's okay. We need a way to escape this pit of subjectivity. Let's establish the inherent subjectivity within genre-to-genre distinctions, meaning that rock music has a certain range of sounds within it that are appealing to a certain set of tastes, and pop music has a certain range of sounds within it, or tones, that are appealing to a certain set of tastes. If we misapplied those sounds that are good in a rock singing context, and we took them and put them over in a pop singing context, they wouldn't sound good anymore. If you sing classical music with the sounds of classical music, then your singing is good. If you sing pop music with the sounds of classical music, your singing is bad. So sounding good is not subjective when the sounds we want to make fall within the constraints of a specific genre. There are genre-specific boundaries that you must uphold in order to preserve the quality of what sounding good means for that genre. So for example, in pop music, people might sing like this. I met you in the dark, you lift me up, you made me feel as though I was enough. But if we tried to apply that to rock music, it would be terrible. Rising up back on the straight, took my time, took my chances, went the distance, now I'm back on my feet, just a man and his will to survive. So what you can do is compare yourself to the best people singing the genre of music that you like. And the best people are your favorite people, the ones who inspired you and make your jaw drop. They sound good. You want to sound good like them. If you're trying to sing pop and your idol is Justin Bieber, but you fail to sound anything like him, then your singing isn't good. Even if the way that you're using your voice feels good and sounds good in another context. Like maybe you go and use your voice the same way and you sing a rock song and it's like, oh, that sounds really good. But then you go to use that for Justin Bieber and that's what you want. Now your singing isn't good anymore. So how do you find the sounds that are good for your voice? Start with finding singers that are closer to your voice. Find people that have voices that are in the same ballpark as your voice. If you're a deep low bass, then study singers with lower voices that are sounding good to you, doing what you want. If you're a woman with a typically higher voice, study singers that reflect that also sound really good to you. This is not about voice type. I can't get into it in this video, but I want you to know that even if your voice is lower, that doesn't mean that you can't get closer to the sounds of somebody who has a higher voice than you, and vice versa. The only point that I'm trying to make here is that you want to copy and study singers who are already in the same ballpark as you, so that it will be easier and more intuitive for you to pick up how they're using their voices. As you improve and level up your singing skills, you can start to move on to other singers who are further away from you, but your starting point should be a singer who is more similar to you. What you want to do is copy them and study how they navigate creating the tones that they do. Use them as a template or a reference and make sure that you record during this process. You need to be recording. You need to be constantly checking if you're matching what they're doing, just like I demonstrate in this video on mimicking. When you go through this process, it's really important that you internalize what sensations are resulting in what sounds. You need to calibrate your mind to process the sensations you're having in relation to the sound that you're producing. This is really important. While you are singing and imitating and practicing, you need to be focused on what everything feels like in your body and sounds like to your ear in real time. Then you need to immediately reference that sensation to a recording of your voice to see if it actually sounded good and sounded the way that you thought it did. They will assume that they're actually getting the sound of the artist because it feels good and it feels like how they expected it to. And it sounds good to them as they're producing the sound. But it can be a lie. It can all be a deceiving trick where it doesn't actually sound good. That's why you need to record it and calibrate your experience with the recording. You cannot just trust that those feelings that you're feeling and the sounds you're hearing when you produce the noise actually are resulting in the thing that you think that it is. Now, are recordings perfect, objective reflections of your singing? No, but they are the best thing that you have. If you're a beginner, just start with recording on your phone. If you've been at this a while, it's time to get serious and invest in some recording equipment. It just takes it to the next level when you can capture your voice more accurately on a nicer mic and then listen back. The calibration is much better and you will improve faster because the recording being a higher quality is a more accurate reflection of what that sound is actually like. I have heard vocal coaches say, never record yourself. You can only trust me to tell you if your voice is good. And that is literally the worst advice that you could possibly take if your objective is that you want to become a singer that has the voice that you want. Don't trust your vocal coach. Don't trust me. Listen to yourself and decide if you're happy with the result. The last thing I want to say is you can learn new vocal skills that will allow you to find the tones you want with your voice. You're not stuck with your voice. You're just having a hard time figuring out how to change your voice the way you want. What I mean when I say that you need to make sounds that sound good for your voice is really that you need to focus on what the main objective is of singing, which is you want to sound good. And if you can't produce a certain sound in a way that where it actually sounds good, then don't make that sound. Or rather, it's not that you shouldn't make that sound, because I'm all for you improving and getting better at things that you're not good at. And a lot of times you have to make ugly sounds first in order to figure out and experiment with your voice how to get closer to where it is you want to go. But the thing is, don't confuse that sound that you made that felt good with something that actually sounds good. You need to just, at the end of the day, do what's going to work for you. Go with what you can figure out that actually sounds good. If you can't make your high C actually sound good when you sing a song with it, then don't use it in a song yet. It doesn't mean don't work at that. It doesn't mean that you just have a different voice type and that your voice type can't do high C. It doesn't mean that. It means that right now, for your voice, you need to play to your strengths and keep your eye on the prize, sounding good. If you need some help and guidance, visit my website. Link is in the description. Check out this video on mimicking to improve your tone if you haven't yet, and give this video a like if it was helpful.